I belong to you.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Kelsey here, Law & Order SVU OC fan. Today's video, we are actually going to be talking about what I consider to be the greatest reunion in television history. That's right, I am talking about Return of the Prodigal Son. I remember April 1st being the greatest day ever. I didn't think it would ever come. I remember counting down the days until it aired. I stayed up to watch the episode live, and I'm so glad that I did, because I really got to see the emotion and the raw, powerful, emotions between Elliot and Olivia. I didn't expect it to be as emotional as I thought it would be, but it was just incredible television, incredible acting, especially by Chris and Mariska all around. I am still really mad that they didn't get nominated for an Emmy. They got robbed, in my personal opinion. I know everybody in this fandom will agree with me. They did get robbed. Award shows suck. But anyway, so I remember sending out a tweet not too long ago asking where you guys were and what were you doing when you found out that Chris was coming back as Elliot Stabler. I remember, for me in particular, I was reading something online. I don't remember what it was, but all of a sudden I saw Chris's name pop up saying that he was coming back as Stabler. Not only was he coming back as Stabler, but he was also getting his own show, his own spin-off called Organized Crime. And I just thought that was super cool. And I remember I was actually kind of surprised that he was coming back, because I remember Chris saying in interviews in the past that he wouldn't come back to SVU. It was a chapter in his life that he was done with. So I'm thinking maybe around season 20, season 21, him and Mariska started talking about it. I know Mariska probably was yanking his chain, trying to get him to come back, and they're best friends. So, I mean, whatever Mariska did to try and convince Chris to come back, it worked, because we got him on this really incredible episode. We got him on his own show, Organized Crime, which is also amazing. So Return of the Prodigal Son, I'm just going to share my thoughts on the episode. I've seen this episode multiple times since it aired. Rewatching on Hulu. It's just a really good episode. There are a couple flaws, but I just choose to ignore them. The Elliot and Olivia moments do make up for them, and like I said, incredible acting by Chris and Mariska all around, because they're just fantastic at what they do, especially after being 10 years not acting with each other every day like they were before. It was just effortless. I'm gonna quote them. It was very effortless. It seemed to be like riding a bike for them. I'm sure it maybe took a couple times for them, but their acting was just incredible the entire episode all around, especially with Chris not, being away from the Law and Order world for so long, and then Mariska kind of holding her own after he was gone, but then being with each other in the same room, in the same scenes together. You can just tell that their chemistry was like that right back where they started. It's like time hadn't passed between the two of them. That's what I love most about it, is their chemistry, and Mariska and Chris are best friends. They even they kept in touch even after he left. So I love that about them. Not only are they great actors, they're great people too. So actually July 1st is the 3-month anniversary that Return of the Prodigal Son aired on television. I can't believe it's been 3 months since Elliot Stabler came back into our lives, came back into this fandom. I can't believe it. And we saw him on Organized Crime. But I'm just going to talk about Return of the Prodigal Son for now. Like I said, I'm just going to share my thoughts, what I loved about the episode, all the Elliot and Olivia moments. What I really loved in the beginning was how it just started off just powerful, just like that. We see Olivia going to her award ceremony. But she has to stop at a crime scene first. She doesn't know what she's about to see, and as a viewer, we don't know what we're about to see either. I remember my heart was pounding so fast, because I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know how they were going to start it off. And then we see Kathy being loaded into the ambulance, and I was in shock. Olivia was in shock too. I'm sure everybody was in shock. Like, okay, this is how we're starting off this episode. Like, very powerful, just right off the bat. And then Olivia's in shock seeing Kathy being loaded into the ambulance, and then she turns around, she hears Liv. She turns around, and there's Elliot standing right in the middle of the street. And they walk toward each other, and it's like this really powerful coming together moment between the two of them, and all they can do is just stare at each other and just give each other these long, long looks. Like they're both in shock, their jaws drop to the floor, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm seeing you again. And you can tell throughout the episode, and not only for Elliot, but for Olivia mostly, you could definitely tell that she was feeling all these emotions at once. You could definitely tell, the anger and the betrayal that she felt from him when he left was coming back up to the surface. All these feelings, what she felt for Elliot in the past and what she feels for him now. I'm sure those feelings were coming up to the surface for her as well. She doesn't want to get too personal with him, and it's mostly she's being professional with him the entire time in this entire episode. She's being really professional with him, and you can tell Elliot wants to make things right. He wants to make amends with her, but it has to be earned. He has to do it the right way. He can't just walk into Olivia's life, like nothing has happened. He's got some explaining to do, because he basically ghosted her for 10 years. No contact, no nothing. So then we get to see another big moment, which was Olivia talking to Kathy, trying to figure out what has happened to her, if she remembers anything from the car bomb exploding. And we see Elliot sitting next to Kathy by her bedside, trying to make a joke. Olivia trying to make a joke. Oh, I hate making speeches, when Kathy's like, I'm sorry I ruined your big award ceremony. It's like, that's kind of an awkward, cringeworthy conversation to start out with, especially after someone you haven't seen in 10 years. But I'm just going to choose to ignore it. And then, she asks, do you remember anything? And then Kathy really doesn't remember much at all. She saw was just dark. She couldn't really see anything. And then she sees, Kathy makes the comment to both Elliot and Olivia, it's just like the old days, the two of you together, always so in sync. And they definitely always have been in sync. Even in this episode, you could tell that they were in sync with each other as well. And she says, you really didn't talk for 10 years. And I'm actually still confused about that comment that she made. So I don't know if Elliot told her that him and Olivia haven't had any contact for 10 years, or Kathy knew about it and she just wanted it confirmed by Olivia herself that they haven't talked for 10 years. There's a bunch of theories going on as to why Elliot really left SVU. I'm actually going to do a separate video on that later on. But yeah, that's actually confusing to me as to why she would make that comment. Maybe it was just a confirmation for her. Elliot basically left Olivia and SVU to save their marriage, because their marriage is probably on the rocks again. We don't know. And I'm hoping going into this new season of SVU, and especially organized crime maybe, that they'll dig more deeper into that. But Olivia says, yeah, it's true. And she also makes the comment, I didn't even know he was back on the job. And then Kathy says, well, that's what Elliot told me. So did she not know that Elliot was doing some NYPD work in Rome too? Did he keep that from her? I don't know. To me, that's my interpretation of the scene, but I could be wrong. So we got that moment. Actually, before that, we got the interrogation scene where they find the suspect, and Rollins and Finn are actually interrogating him. Olivia, she's bringing all the facts to Kat and Carisi. Carisi isn't sure if he thinks this guy is good for it. But then all of a sudden you see Elliot walk into Olivia's office like it's nothing. Even he's gone for SVU for 10 years and he just walks into the building, into the office like it's nothing. So we see Elliot kind of awkwardly interacting with the squad, new people he's not familiar with. So then you get to see Elliot asking Olivia, let me talk to him, let me interrogate him. And Olivia says, no, I can't do that. I can't let you in there. And he says, please, I give you my word, I'll behave. And they look at each other again. I love those longing looks between the two of them. Their eyes say more than actual words with the two of them sometimes. You can just tell that they communicate to each other with their eyes. That says more than enough, in my personal opinion. So then Olivia lets him into the interrogation room. He starts interrogating the guy, and you can tell Olivia's watching him to see what he does, because again, they haven't been partners. They haven't worked together for over 10 years. So she's trying to see what he's like, if he's the same, if he's changed, because Stabler, the old Stabler does have, he had a bit of a temper. He liked to rough up suspects in order to get a confession out of them. So he's actually, Stabler to me seemed very calm. He actually seemed to be, he asked the right questions. He was very civil towards the guy. He actually had a notepad in front of him, which I don't remember Stabler ever having a notepad in front of him when interrogating a suspect. Maybe. I could be wrong, but to me that kind of caught me off guard. I'm like, okay, let me see what he does. And you can tell Olivia's watching and observing him too. So then we get to see the suspects are saying more stuff to kind of piss Elliot off, especially when he makes a comment about Kathy. And Olivia can kind of see it's starting to get a rise out of him. And, Elliot immediately gets up from the table. He starts rolling up his sleeves, which, by the way, that's one of the sexiest moments in television, in my personal opinion. It was pretty hot. So he starts, and then that's when Olivia knows what he's going to do. He's going to try and rough him up to get a confession out of him. So she stops it. She says, okay, we're done. And then Elliot he rolls his sleeves back down. He grabs his jacket, starts to walk out. And then the suspect says something else to try and piss him off. And then he starts to run and charge at him. But Olivia stops him and says, Detective Stabler, get out now. Now that moment was a sexually charged moment, in my opinion, because they look at each other, he looks at her, she looks at him, and they let go of each other. He gets up, walks out of the room, and then we see them in the next scene, they're on the rooftop arguing with each other. Olivia basically saying, things have changed since you've been gone. There are security cameras in the interrogation room now, and that confession we can't use because you're the spouse, you're Kathy's husband, it can't work. And he says, please, I've been living in Europe, not under a rock. And so, that really pissed him off. And then Olivia, he says, oh, are you going to write me up, Captain? And she says, you know what, Elliot? She kind of starts to say something. And then Dickie comes and gets Elliot, saying that Kathy's awake. So back to the hospital. After Kathy's asleep, Olivia's in the waiting room. Elliot tells her that Kathy's asleep. So then we get to see, that's when we really get to see them interact with each other. You can tell that Olivia, she doesn't know what to say to him. She doesn't know how to be around him. She's kind of letting Elliot do most of the talking. He offers her water. She says no. And he apologizes to her for how he was acting in the interrogation room, which kind of surprised me because Stabler never really apologized for anything. He was very unapologetic back in the old SVU days. He only apologized unless he had to. So he says, I'm sorry, it's your house now. It wasn't, when Cragen, was there, it's your house and I'm sorry for how I acted. And she says, I appreciate that. Thank you. And then she starts to get up and walk around, probably some nervous energy. Because like I said, she doesn't know how to act around him. She doesn't know how to be around him. It's been 10 years since they've seen each other. She doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know what to feel around him. And then he says, Liv, I'm sorry. And then she says, oh, you want to do this now? and that look in his eyes, like he desperately wants her back in his life. He wants to make amends for what he did to her, for leaving her, abandoning her. You can just tell he feels really, he's broken. He feels so many things. You know, he's sorry. He feels so bad for hurting her, and he knows he's the cause of that hurt. So then Olivia says, "You really want to do this now?" And he says, "What are you sorry for? Are you sorry for walking? Or are you sorry for, you know, not telling me, not giving me the courtesy of telling me?" You know, she says she had to find out from Craig and that he left, and he says, "I'm sorry for both." And it's very soft. Their voices are very soft. You know, Elliot's, you know, he's trying to fight back tears. Olivia's trying to fight back tears. It's a very emotional, powerful conversation for them. So then Elliot starts to say, "I thought if I talked to you about how," and then Olivia cuts him off. She just lets him have it. So I'm wondering what actually Elliot was going to say to her. We don't know. Maybe that conversation will continue next season, but we'll see what happens. So then Olivia just lets him have it. She says, "What are you sorry for? Are you sorry for walking? Or are you sorry for leaving? That's what you did. You walked away from me. You left me. You abandoned me." She says, "You were the single most important person in my life, and you just disappeared." And, you can tell, I love the way they say their names to each other, Olivia, Elliot, like really soft, really emotional. When they're soft with each other, that's when you get them to be more vulnerable, I think more honest with each other than they've ever been before. And they're very not in tune with their emotions, Stabler and Benson. They never have been. We've gotten some good vulnerable moments between the two of them over the years, but this was very rare for them. And this was their most vulnerable, their most emotional, in my personal opinion, especially for Elliot, because he kept his emotions locked up, and Olivia too. And Elliot's starting to tear up. Olivia's starting to tear up. Elliot's starting to tear up. It's just really emotional and beautiful and powerful. Again, amazing acting from Chris and Mariska all around. And then you see Elliot say, "I was afraid if I heard your voice, I wouldn't have been able to leave." And I'm like, oh, my heart. That broke me. When he said that line to her, that was a line out of fan fiction, in my opinion. And we got Elliot Stabler to say that to Olivia Benson. I mean, that was just, it was so powerful and raw, and we don't get to see Olivia's reaction much. We don't get to have her say anything much. And then we get to see Garland calls her. She has to leave. She gets actually kind of flustered. "Where's the exit?" And she kind of looks around to see where the exit is. Only Elliot Stabler can make her flustered, in my opinion. So then the next big moment, we get to see Olivia meeting Elliot in the hospital, and we don't know, he's next to Kathy's hospital room. We're not really sure why. And then we get to see the bed, and we think, oh, she died. Kathy died. And I couldn't believe they killed her. It shocked me. It just rocked me to my core. Because Elliot called Olivia first before his kids. He called her before his kids, before anybody else, to tell her about Kathy. Because he needed her in that moment. He needed her desperately. He wanted comfort from her. That's his best friend. He's trying to make amends, for what he did. He's trying to right some wrongs with her, oh my gosh. And when Olivia, I'm sure she's trying to gather herself, you can tell. And then when you see her walk towards Elliot, he turns around, his eyes are really teary. And then she just says, "I'm so sorry." And then Elliot just hugs her and just sobs into her neck. He nuzzles into her neck. That I wasn't expecting to see at all. You just tell he needed her in that moment. And Olivia looked like she didn't want him hugging her, but maybe that's, I don't know if it was comforting for her too, for them hugging each other. I don't know, maybe, and I'm sure she's running through all sorts of emotions, going through her mind, he just lost his wife, I'm going to be there for him in this moment. And then whatever I feel for him now, we'll deal with it later. So then she doesn't say much. All she can say to him is I'm sorry. And then Elliot tells her in the next scene, her spleen ruptured, they took her into surgery, but it was too late. And he didn't even get to say goodbye to her. So he's feeling all sorts of types of emotions right now. He didn't get to say goodbye to his wife. To me, in my opinion, he was spending all of his time with Olivia instead of being by Kathy's bedside. Even Olivia tried to tell him, hey, you need to be with Kathy, you need to be by her bedside, and all he wanted to do was focus on the case, focus on who did this to her, and be with Liv. So I'm sure he's feeling really guilty. He's feeling all sorts of types of emotions in that moment too. He just lost his wife, over 30 years. He's a widower. So it's just really powerful and honest and emotional. Olivia, asks, is there anything I can do? And he says, no, I will call the kids. You just make sure he goes down for murder. And then the murderer, the suspect, somebody injected a needle in his arm, probably poisoned him. So there goes the case. So we don't know what's going to happen with that. And we do know it continues on in organized crime. But SVU, as far as they're concerned, Garland tells Benson at the end that she's going to be taken off the case, and she says no, she doesn't want to be taken off the case. Well, and Garland says, well, it's out of my hands. So you can tell that this isn't over. For Stabler and Benson, I think it's just the beginning of their relationship, them rediscovering each other. She meets Elliot in the chapel. He's crying his eyes out. He's hugging Dickie and Kathleen, who are also crying. And they're just exchanging heartbroken looks to each other. It's just really sad. That's how it ends. It's just a close-up of Elliot's eyes, just tears and tears. Like I said, I love the episode overall. It was super raw, emotional, and powerful. It's a beautiful episode. It's a new beginning for Stabler and Benson, in my opinion. This is just the beginning for them. Especially for Olivia trying to find her footing, being around Elliot. We do get to see that develop in organized crime. I'm hoping we get to see more of their relationship grow and develop next season on SVU and organized crime. I'm betting we're probably going to get that more on organized crime, but SVU might surprise us. I'm trying to be optimistic. But like I said, those are my thoughts. I don't really have any new theories. Comment below. Let me know, guys, what you thought of the episode. How many times have you watched it? Do you have any new thoughts, new theories on Elliot and Olivia, about Kathy's death? This is, just so powerful and emotional and beautiful. I love the episode. I think it's in my top 10 favorite SVU episodes for sure. It stayed with me. I didn't expect it, to be as emotional as it was, but yet here we are in this new chapter of Elliot and Olivia's relationship. So yeah, comment below. Let me know what you guys think of the episode. If you have any new thoughts or theories, comment, like, and subscribe to my channel. If you like this content, I will keep doing more, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.